Welcome, everyone, to the 2023 NNLM Virtual Symposium on Health Misinformation. We are glad you're able to join us today. My name is Elizabeth Roth, and I'm the Research and Data Science Strategist for Region 2 of the Network of the National Library of Medicine. We just have a few technical items to cover before we get started. All attendees have been muted, but we do welcome your questions and comments into the chat. Please use the Q&A for questions that our presenter will address at the end. VFAIRS is providing technical assistance today, and NNLM staff will be keeping an eye on the chat. Please be sure to select everyone from the drop-down menu when posting your questions and comments in chat to ensure everyone sees them. Submit questions for the speakers using Q&A. We have live closed captioners for this event. You can access the closed captions by clicking on the icon with the 3 dots and then selecting closed caption. If you'd like to share on social media, we encourage you to use the hashtag for the event, which is HealthMisinfoNNLM. Before we get started, I'd like to share a little about who we are. The National Institutes of Health is the nation's leading medical research agency. Many of you might be more familiar with the National Center for Allergies and Infectious Disease, which is one of the many institutes and centers at NIH. NLM, or the National Library of Medicine, is one of the 27 institutes and offices of the NIH. It's the world's largest biomedical library and produces online resources like PubMed and MedlinePlus. NNLM, the Network of the National Library of Medicine, is an outreach program of National Library of Medicine working to ensure health professionals and the public have equal access to health information. And NNLM is made up of 7 regional medical libraries, 3 national offices, and 4 national centers, all providing training, funding, and engagement opportunities to over 9,000 NNLM member organizations. It is my pleasure to introduce today's speaker, Jocelyn Swick-Jemison, who is an assistant librarian at the University at Buffalo. And I will stop sharing. Take it away.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. Hi, so I'm going to share the link to my slides, which are actually in the form of a website, in the chat. So you may follow along if you'd like, if that makes it easier. And as we go along, I'll have a couple other things that I'll share with you as links in the chat box as well. All right, let's jump right in then. So my name is Jocelyn Swick-Jemison. I am currently a data services librarian at the University at Buffalo. Let me go ahead and share my screen. All right, can everybody see my screen there?
Yes.
Awesome, thank you. Stuff around here. All right. So, I am a data services librarian. This is a new role for me. I've been in it for about 6 weeks now, but I've been at UB for 5 years. Previous to this position, I was an undergraduate education librarian. So my main job was teaching information literacy to first-year students. So in that role, I've learned a lot about how people are consuming information that they find online. And then along with the mis and disinformation surrounding the COVID-19 pandemic, I noticed a skill gap when it came to evaluating science and a general lack of trust in so-called experts. So my position now is based in our health sciences library, and I have a previous career in clinical research. So my focus today, I will say that it's about science literacy, but it really does kind of hone in on health information literacy as well. Those are the examples I use because those are the examples I find most interesting personally. So this is what I am calling evidence-based scrolling. So in short, this is the idea that we need to be able to trust experts, but we also need to be able to hold them to a high standard. There are hundreds of science experts sharing quality information online in an entertaining and easy to understand format. But we also know that there are pseudo experts out there looking to spread mis and disinformation. In fact, I noticed during the keynote in the chat, someone mentioned, oh, my, so-and-so thinks that they are getting good health information from TikTok. They go to their TikTok doctors, right? So no, I do not need for my slides to progress. I haven't moved on yet. Thank you, though. So, right, TikTok is an example I like to use because while, of course, there's plenty of misinformation being shared there, there are some really great experts sharing quality information. I have found personally some excellent information about not only COVID-19, but also things like mental health conditions, where there is some actually really good quality information. But we need to learn how to sort the good from the bad, and we need to learn how to teach our patrons, right, to sort the good from the bad in a way that is not overwhelming and that is an easy skill to pick up. So I'm proposing an approach based on the concept of evidence-based medicine. So basically today, I want you to take away how to recognize how science influencers can be role models for science literacy, looking at methods for integrating science influencers and the concept of science literacy into your practice, and feeling empowered to use non-traditional media and information formats to reach students and patrons and demonstrate science interpretation skills for use in the real world. All right, so the idea of expertise by proxy. Despite what the internet would let us believe, you cannot actually become an expert in everything. No amount of doing your own research is going to make you an astrophysicist. It's at least not me, right? So identifying experts who use evidence openly to openly share science information is important. We need to know who we can trust. We need to know how to trust experts, but also be able to verify them. So traditionally, as librarians, these are some of the things we look at. We look at authority. Are they offering information outside of their area of expertise? This is something that happens often on social media. Currency. Is the information that they are sharing still accurate today, or is it based on outdated information? Science changes quickly, okay? And that actually can be an advantage to social media. Is the information they're sharing accurate, and how do you know that? Relevance. Is the evidence they're using relevant to the question they're trying to answer? And purpose. So something that's very important when it comes to social media, we want to look at the influencer's purpose. Mainly, you want to ask yourself, are they trying to sell you stuff? So I make a few exceptions to these rules. One being that one of my favorite science influencers is someone named Mama Dr. Jones, who's an OBGYN who makes awesome YouTube videos. And I did purchase this sweatshirt from her a couple of years ago, and this is my official ugly Christmas sweater. So what is evidence-based practice? Most of you all are probably familiar with this concept. So what I like to tell people is that evidence-based practice is what you hope your doctor is doing. It can sometimes mean that a doctor or other health practitioner presents you with a treatment option that is not, quote, what has always been done. It may also mean that your practitioner may not prescribe the new flashy or expensive treatment because they know that the tried and true standard of care has the best evidence of effectiveness. So evidence-based practice is based on the idea of evidence-based medicine, meaning the practice of applying the current best information to guide the treatment of individual patients. So how can we apply this to our own science consumption? You can use an evidence-based approach to evaluate whether our science influencers are also using an evidence-based approach to present information. Once we have established someone as an evidence-based practitioner, we can trust their expertise by proxy. Meaning the energy that goes into validating each one of these sources that we find online is not infinite. So I'm proposing that it's a wise move to have a collection of experts that you can rely on, that you go through that vetting process, you know you can trust them, and you can go back to them for information when you need more. So what we're looking for is the idea of rejecting the idea of this is how we've always done it in favor of this is what the science supports. Also, a willingness to change as new information becomes available. So this is a diagram of the basics of evidence-based medicine. And you can see that it is a combination of clinical judgment, meaning the previous knowledge that the health practitioner already has, relevant and scientific evidence, meaning what is currently in the literature as best practice, and combined with the patient's values and preferences. So evidence. Information sources have a hierarchy. Whenever possible, your experts that you're using online should be using sources at the top of this hierarchy, meaning meta-analyses and systematic reviews. And when evaluating new research that might come in lower down here, maybe in randomized controls trials, cohort studies, or case control studies, they should be presenting it in the context of previously published research. Judgment. Your own personal knowledge and experience influences how you understand science. And that's okay. This is kind of what we think of as the smell test, right? If it sounds like it's not good information, it probably isn't. So you need to trust your own instincts and judgment when it comes to interpreting science that you find online. And then we come to preferences. So in medicine, a patient's preferences must be taken into consideration. So you think about a person who is diagnosed with end-stage cancer, and they're told that chemotherapy may offer them a few extra months of life, but would be miserable to endure. Their preference might be to forego the evidence-based treatment in order to have a better quality of life, right? So when it comes to science literacy, there's also a place for preferences, but it cannot come at the expense of evidence. So for instance, two of my favorite medical influencers online, including the Mama Dr. Jones that I just shared the sweatshirt of, are OBGYNs who are unabashedly pro-choice. I am also pro-choice. So I find their information aligns with my own values, and therefore I keep them in my arsenal of tools when it comes to finding information online, health information online. If I were not pro-choice, I might be looking for different sources of information, which is fine as long as it doesn't come at the cost of evidence. Preferences give us room to choose the proxies that share our values, but it's not a substitute for evidence. So what are the steps of evidence-based practice? Number one, formulating an answerable question. If you're seeking information on a topic, ask yourself, is this question answerable? For instance, what is the cure for cancer is not an answerable question. However, what is the best treatment for a premenopausal woman with stage 2 ER PGR positive breast cancer? On the other hand, that's an answerable question. If you're simply looking to learn more information about a topic, ask yourself if the content creator is presenting an answerable question. Number 2, finding evidence. So you watch the video, you listen to the podcast, you read the tweets. Has the influencer clearly stated what sources they are gathering their evidence from? When we teach undergraduate students how to do research, we teach them that one of the most important ways to validate information that you find is, did that person cite their own sources? So you're looking for somebody who's going to properly cite those sources. If they're not telling you, where they got their information, that's never a good sign. So if they're presenting a new study or finding, did they clearly identify what the study is and how to find it, right? You don't want to read an article about some new study finding and not be able to find that original study and read it for yourself. Appraising the evidence. Here we're asking ourselves, are they comparing the new finding to older findings to fully evaluate it? Are they looking at the entire context of this new information? And are they critically evaluating the finding in a new study? For example, are they looking at the study methods and design, the funding, or the statistical analysis? This is not stuff that's always easy to understand. Even as a health sciences librarian, a data librarian, I'm not always the most confident in evaluating a study for its design or its statistical analysis. Sometimes that is something I have to rely on other experts for. But it's definitely something you want to look for when you're looking for information online. Oops, I should have advanced earlier. Sorry about that. I'm going to jump through here. This is all just the stuff I've already said. All right. So let me see. I got ahead of myself here. Formulating the question, blah, blah, blah. Sorry if I'm making everybody nauseous here. All right. There we go. Caught up with myself there. So does the information presented apply to the question you're trying to answer? This can be tricky. Sometimes when people share information online, it seems to be relevant to your question. But when you go back and look at those original sources, maybe it was a different population of people being studied. Maybe it was a different medication being studied. Maybe the way this content creator has shared the information, they've misinterpreted. So you want to ask yourself, is the information presented relevant to the question you're trying to answer? And finally, evaluating performance. This is where a medical practitioner might look back and say, how did that drug actually work for my patient? So as a science consumer, you're asking yourself, has the content creator answered the question they set out to? And have they answered the question that you had? Is the use of evidence consistent across their content? Now, this can be tricky too. Maybe you found somebody new that you find interesting online, and you start following their channels and you think it's really great, but maybe you dig into the stuff they've done in the past and they weren't as evidence-based as you like. Or maybe they offered you one really good video and you learned a lot, but then the next one goes into some pseudoscience. So ask yourself, have they consistently used quality evidence across all of their content? And then number 3 here, which is huge and which is something I think the public really didn't understand about the research that came out so quickly about COVID-19, is that we have to redirect when we have new information. So if there's new information, has that person shown openness to new ideas? And if they did make mistakes, or if the studies that they've referenced were recalled or acknowledged as mistakes, do they clearly and openly correct them? So after an extensive study of the evidence, a medical practitioner may decide to bring a new treatment into their arsenal, or maybe remove a treatment. You, as a science information consumer, are aiming to fill your medicine cabinet with reliable information. With careful evaluation, you can fill that cabinet with a collection of experts and science content creators that you can rely on. All right, so now I'd like to take a look at a couple of examples. You can get to these links in that presentation that I just posted the link to. Let's take a look at a couple of science influencers and ask ourselves the questions that I just proposed. So formulating an answerable question. Let's look at two different science influencers. Number one, this is going to be an influencer named Dr. Jinmei Graham. Need the link again. Okay. Is that link working for the people who have gotten it? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sending it just to panelists. That's my bad. I should have read that at the beginning. Thank you. Thanks, Michelle. All right. Okay, so the links to the examples I'm talking about are in that presentation. All right. Good thing I had the whole hour. The second person canceled. I can just blab on forever here. If anybody needs to interrupt me, please do. So we're looking at formulating and answering an answerable question. Let's take a look at our first influencer. This is a naturopathic doctor, Dr. Jinmei Graham. And this person has shared this, basically it's a retweet of Dr. Joseph Ladapo, and he was the Surgeon General of Florida. So he released this so-called study. It's supposedly a case control study. If you look at it pretty closely, it was pretty poorly done, saying that this analysis of young men between 18 and 39 found evidence of increased issues with cardiac health following the COVID-19 vaccination. All right. So then we have our second science influencer. This is a podcaster. It's actually two podcasters. They're both scientists, one in public health and one in biology. And they have posted a similar on a similar topic about myocarditis and COVID-19. And their evidence contradicts what that first one said, and saying that COVID-19 itself poses a higher overall risk for myocarditis. So going back to our evidence-based question, which one is answerable? Okay, so this one is trying to answer, is there an increased risk of cardiac death amongst men 18 to 39? Seemingly an answerable question, but this one from Unbiased Science actually presents a more answerable question in that it's more there's a better context. They're not necessarily saying that the vaccination doesn't cause an increase in myocarditis. They are saying that the evidence shows us that COVID-19 itself, the disease, is more likely to cause myocarditis. Finding evidence. Okay. So again, the evidence here, this is just an image of a link, so it's not easy to get to. I can tell you if you take the time to type that in. Oh, I apologize for that, Angela. But you can see it on my screen for the time being, right? I hope. Thank you. Okay. I will double check that in my links and see if I can do this and maybe do a screenshot instead. So in this case, that link to the guidance that they have posted here, it's a dead link. It doesn't actually go anywhere. But I was able to find the original report that this tweet was based on. And if you take the time to dig into it a little bit, I can tell you that it's based on some pretty flimsy evidence, very small population of people studied, and it didn't look at the incidence of myocarditis from the vaccine versus what was from the disease itself. As opposed to our unbiased science post, which for one, you can see over here in the comments has a very long discussion of the evidence. And then in the links, they actually have links to every single source that they use to come to this conclusion. All right. And using my tried and true librarian skills, I can kind of glance through these links and I can see that they're coming from reputable sources. So I believe this is the American Heart Association, and then some medical journals, Johns Hopkins, CDC. You could take the time to go through and open each one of those, but they are mostly what we would consider to be at the top of that evidence pyramid. They're not all meta-analyses or systematic reviews, but a lot of them are randomized controlled trials or other studies that have a solid science behind them. All right, so then again, appraising the evidence. This one, it wasn't published in a peer-reviewed journal. It was merely posted on the state of Florida's website, as opposed to, again, the links that we have here from Unbiased Science that are published in peer-reviewed journals. Applying the evidence. So again, taking the time to look at the evidence that is within this report that the Surgeon General is using here, it actually does not indicate that men from 18 to 39 should not get the vaccine. In fact, it indicates exactly the opposite. And there's even language in there saying that the population sample was too small to actually draw any conclusions from. Again, as opposed to our unbiased science, where they carefully evaluated these sources to come to the conclusion that in relation to what somebody might get from the disease of COVID-19, the vaccination is actually much safer. All right, and then it comes to evaluating performance, and this is where you get to go down a rabbit hole of looking through a naturopath's Instagram page, which you get all kinds of interesting and questionable things, as opposed to the Unbiased Science podcast site, which I don't know if anybody's listened to it, is really well done. This was recommended to me by a friend who's actually awesome. Morgan, that's great. This was actually recommended to me by a friend who's an epidemiologist. So I was like, oh, I know this is going to be good. And they do a really good job of breaking down the information into a way that is easy to understand. And it's always backed by science. Yes, Lynn. It was Florida. My apologies to anybody here from Florida, but yeah, they had a different game plan when it came to COVID, and it wasn't evidence-based, that's for sure. So you as a science consumer are aiming to fill your medicine cabinet with reliable information. I would say that the ladies from Unbiased Science are definitely in my my medicine cabinet of people I go to when I need information. For example, recently, I was questioning the validity of chiropractic care. I had been seeing some stuff online, some stuff on Twitter from doctors who I respect saying, how it can be dangerous. There's no evidence. And I thought, my family members have always gone to the chiropractors. I never really thought much of it. Unbiased Science podcast has a wonderful episode about chiropractic care that really, put it all into perspective for me. Awesome. Good. That's good to know, Morgan. Thank you. All right. So, I gave this talk, a slightly different talk, but similar talk a couple months ago. And it was right after Damar Hamlin from the Buffalo Bills had collapsed on the field. And so that's kind of why I went with the example of myocarditis, because so many people wanted to blame his condition on vaccines, of course, which there's no evidence of. But it felt really relevant at the time. And I'm raising 3 little boys. And so, I am in the position of having to make those decisions about their health and about their health care, and finding great evidence that can be broken down for me in an easy to understand way from the Unbiased Science podcast was super helpful in that. So let me share another link with you. It's actually right here too. Actually, that link might not work anymore. I'm going to share 2 more links with you. All right, so here's a link to my information if you wanted to get in touch with me. But also here is a link to my evidence-based scrolling website that I set up. If you want to check it out here, this link right here goes to my presentation that I just gave. And this science influencer library discusses some of the people, or it gives links to some of the people that I trust and that I go to when I need information about stuff. And there's one more site that will allow you to submit an expert that you trust that we can add to this list. All right, so I'm going to stop my share. All right, it says screen sharing is paused. All right. All right, interesting, Elaine. Thank you. I'll have to look that one up. Somebody said, let's see, the People's CDC. I'm not familiar with that one. Melissa, I'll have to look that one up too, but the name makes me suspicious, that's for sure. The Pediatrician Mom. Yes, I know that one too. That one's good. All right. So thank you for all the messages in the chat. No ivermectin in sight. That's exactly. Interesting. Okay. All right. Did we just want to keep this conversation going, or do we have any questions?
There's no questions in the Q&A,
Okay.
but if anyone has questions right now, feel free to add them. Thank you so much, Jocelyn. We can, give a little time for people to
absolutely
come up with a question or give some more suggestions of influencers.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to check all of these out and see if we can add them to my list. My list tends to be very kind of women's health oriented. So I'm always, curious about other things. And I will share that this, the idea for this kind of came out of an activity that I did back when I was teaching first year students, where we took a John Oliver episode and we broke it down into its individual parts. So every piece of evidence that he was presenting, and then combining it with the actual studies and information that he was using to back up that evidence. So that's kind of what this came out of.
So we do have a question.
Mhm.
How do you keep up with how to find influencers and resources?
That is, it's funny that this always the question. It's hard. I think I go with, I know a lot of people in the health sciences, so I will ask them, who do they trust? And once I kind of have an established, kind of parasocial relationship with one of these influencers, for example, like there's Dr. Jen Gunter, who's active on Twitter, and she has my cat's trying to join us right now. But so if one of those influencers that I like shares somebody else, I'm likely to check them out.
Okay, I have another question or comment. I'd love to attend this talk again, dumbed down a bit. I'm a public librarian and there was a lot of information here.
Well, don't sell yourself short. Public librarians are amazing. Trust me, your job is harder than mine. But that's, I'm actually developing this for I'm going to rework it into a program for a public library program that we're doing locally here. So that is good to know, and I will take that to heart and work on making this a little bit more for the general public.
So I had a quick question. I'm one of the chat monitors, and I apparently can't write in the Q&A section, so I'm just going to say it. Evidence-based practice was originally designed for kind of informing clinical practice. What are some things that have to change or perhaps might not be applicable when trying to transitioning it to this different context of kind of online health information?
Yeah, I think the hardest part to kind of transition into, evaluating online health information is that what part was it? I forget now what I called it. But kind of the part where you're judging whether or not, evaluating performance or applying the evidence, right? So I think that was the hardest part. Like in evidence-based practice, you're looking at the patient, you're looking at their preferences, and then you're looking at the clinical literature that's available and the most current clinical literature. And then you have an actual person in front of you that you can apply that evidence to. So I think for me, that's kind of like the hardest part with this, kind of method is saying, how do I apply that evidence? Or how is this content creator applying that evidence?
That's useful. Thanks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's an interesting in between, because as a librarian, I want to, I have that urge to go back to the original sources and read them. But that is time consuming and not easy for people who don't have access to academic journal databases like I do. And honestly, I'm not a doctor, so interpreting that is not always easy. So my goal is to build trust in experts and use these novel formats to be able to spread good medical information and to help people discern the good stuff from the bad stuff.
All right. Thank you so much, Jocelyn. If there's no other questions, we will wrap up. Just a reminder that if you're interested in claiming the MLA CE credits for this session, you'll receive an email after the symposium ends with a questionnaire and instructions to claim the CE. And we are not yet done for the day. We have our final session today in about 50 minutes. We encourage you to go take a break, get away from your computer, maybe go outside, and we will start up again at 4:30 Eastern for the final session of the day. Thanks again, Jocelyn.
Thank you. And thanks to everybody. This was a really great conversation. I appreciate it.